Götterdämmerung is out. You're probably enjoying it, and judged by the reviews, most people are loving it. However, I don't feel that way. I'm a little bit mixed about this expansion. So I thought I'd make a video summarizing the things in this expansion that just don't sit well with me. Before I crack open this can of worms, I'm a big believer that constructive criticism helps make a better game. And I still love Hoi 4, even though I feel mixed on this DLC. Being negative is okay as long as you back up with some kind of solution, how it could be better. Where if you're nothing but positive about something, particularly if it's flawed, nothing can be improved from that and developed. So if there's anything to take away from this video is I want Hoi 4 to be a better game. I'm going to critique some of the elements of Götterdämmerung that I'm not a big fan of. My two main critiques are the focus trees and the new special projects function. I was hoping to game and have a look at these new changes. This first critique is about focus tree design. I've mentioned in many dev diaries, which I don't like when a nation has many different problems that need to be fixed. I feel like at maximum it should have two issues. The player can focus their attention on those two key issues. But I understand that's a flavor-based preference, so I'm not going to hold that against Paradox or most of the modding community that seems to like spitting out many different negative modifiers for a nation. My critique comes down to fairy dusting. Now this is a term that I've coined, and it's about focus trees giving bonuses that are very small that don't make an impactful difference to the game. So instead of giving a focus that has a larger, more meaningful change, I'll go to one that pops into my head. Here is an example. The Beacon of Liberty. War support bonus is very small. The Division Defense Core territory is a larger bonus. We'll call that a medium bonus. The research speed is higher than normal, which is kind of a medium bonus. I would say in Czechoslovakia's situation, these bonuses are very meaningful because it's what you need the most as Czechoslovakia. You need to prepare your armed forces and defense and dig in for the incoming Germans that are going to attack you. So in this case, let's just go for war production. Let's stay at the very bottom. So if you look very closely at the bonuses at the bottom, they're very small bonuses. So production cap, which I think is pretty good, and growth, very good. Base and retention is also good, and factory output is also good. But they're very, very small bonuses, and none of them are significantly meaningful. Hence the point I'm getting at, where it seems to like the tooltips are giving lots of small bonuses, but not one big enough that's significant. One that comes to mind as well is playing as Poland, and you've got access to this focus, the National Defense Fund. I think this is one of the best bonuses in the entirety of Hearts of Iron 4. You're given an unbelievably big fat bonus here of 35% reduction in consumer goods, and it lasts you for 2 years. So on its own, the bonus is too strong if the player got it permanently. But because it's temporary, it gives you a chance at the start of the game to boost your economy, which you need at the very start of the game. From a balance perspective, it's good, and then the reward is worth it, but then it doesn't take it too far. Another example is this one too. This is very meaningful. Extra steel and extra aluminium, but it's an overwhelmingly massive amount for 70-day focus. You got a German army in Invincible, which gives +5 recovery rate, which is okay, and then -2 resistance growth speed. Or bonuses that just give claims, which kind of works with the peace conference system. Sure, the tooltip looks impressive. Wow, I'm getting so much. And then you really dig into the details and you're like, well, I'm not really gaining a lot. Where old focuses, for some reason that have not been modified, in this case, Triumphant Will, which you have to control London and Paris, you get an insane political power bonus of +1 political power per day. That is an astronomically huge bonus. Spoiler, guys. This isn't a new focus. This was a part of the old focus tree. To my idea of how a focus tree should be constructed, you're fixing a problem at the top of the focus tree, then you're playing a runway to get to the bottom, and at the bottom, you're giving a good payoff. I personally would prefer a focus to have a meaningful change, something impactful, over something really small like 3 leaders get political connected and commander as advisor costs -15%. When nations like Belgium starts off with significantly worse economic situations and have to defend against Germany as well, meaning a double whammy. In summary, I would much prefer focuses have meaningful bonuses over sprinkling fairy dusted very small bonuses like this, for instance. Another big problem as a whole for national focus trees in Hoi 4 is a lot of them require a test run, particularly if you go old history, for you to know the focus tree. It's almost like there's an incentive to doing more than one let's play of a certain country to understand the focus tree so you click the right things at the right times. I suppose examples would be if you get to a certain part of the focus tree and you can't progress any further because you've not done this certain thing that somehow ties two focuses together that might be far apart from one another. So one of the issues I run into is a lot of focus trees require test runs, so you have to play them more than once, particularly for alt history, to understand the focus tree, to therefore pull it off in a somewhat successful way. Example, I play as Belgium. I tried to form the EU path, which is this one, the Council of Europe, which I think is a cool concept. However, whenever you go for the Benelux Union, they will always say no on historical, which the 4 times I did try with historical on, they will always say no. And once again, there's nothing in the tooltips to suggest there's anything you can do about that to modify the ability for the Netherlands to say yes or no. Once again, I have a preference for historical. I tend to find that when you turn historical off, the world just falls into this really weird ahistorical chaos. I'm not a big fan of that. I guess I play Hoi4 for more of a history game, and when I turn historical off and I just see just communism just appear in random countries around the world, I don't know, it just breaks my immersion a little bit. So I ended up in a situation where I had to keep reloading the path, making nations join the EU, but there was always a percentage chance of that nation joining yes or no. Even if you boost relations, even if you have other agreements with those said nations, it's just a random roll of the dice. I suppose I've mentioned this before in previous expansions. I don't think RNG fits very well with the Hoi4 game. And it'd be kind of nice if the tooltip gave a suggestion on why a said focus can be completed or will be completed, and what the result of that completion could be. It all comes down to the tooltip saying these are the possible outcomes. Otherwise, you're in a situation where you kind of either having to guess, or you're having to pull up the modding code, which is a very dirty way of finding out how the game works. In short, I think the solution to this is just to have tooltips that give a bit of an idea to the player if something will or will not happen. I think they learned that later on, but they've not adopted it for this new focus tree. An example is concessions for Labrador and Newfoundland. It says, look, you're more likely to consider this request as an outright demand, and they're more likely to accept our request if we are at war, have a high opinion of us, have a greater than 25% progress, or have the same ideology as us. So the tooltip tells you the outcomes and what you can do to steer it towards the direction that you want for the outcome. Because no one wants to wait 70 days to gain this piece of land, and then this piece of land has nothing in it. And then for the UK to go, no, you're not having that. Summarize the second time. Yes, it'd be nice if the tooltips give a little bit of a direction on some of these alt history paths, potentially the ones that have got RNG, to let me know what is the likely, unlikely outcomes based on. Another thing I want to touch on about focus trees is how many nations have the same conclusions to the path. Like, you can form the EU as Hungary, you can do it as Belgium, you can do it as Austria. I think you can also do it as Germany as well. What it'd be kind of more interesting is that, yeah, that's fine. They all can form their little own EUs, their little democratic federation of nations in Europe, which the idea on its own is really creative and really cool. But wouldn't it be more fun if each nation had a different idea of what the EU would look like with a different naming scheme, other than this same process of just sucking people into your faction with decisions and then federating them? And then, like, Austria can form Austria-Hungary, Hungary can form Austria-Hungary. I don't mind if they've got the same conclusion, but I don't know, just be a bit more creative at the end of the path. Have the tooltip tell me just slightly in what direction this focus will go, and then have a different result at the very end of it, other than just make big faction of EU, federate Europe. I feel uncomfortable talking about this last one, because I played the early access version, and there was a few paths that I went down that didn't feel like they were fully finished, like it needed more polish, needed attention. I feel like that might just be more of a lack of playtesting problem. I did the Belgian Congo because I thought it was the most interesting location of this DLC. And the first path is I immediately went down the right side here and declared independence, and I broke away from Belgium, and I formed an independent nation in 1937, and it was really cool. The only problem was I only had like 2 civilian factories. So I didn't really have enough industry to keep myself afloat for the rest of the game. So I was like, that's fine, I'll just do the industry focuses. Well, it turns out that all these focuses here get locked out once you become independent, because Belgium doesn't want to work with you. So you need to work with Belgium to develop your nation. Also, these focuses all get blocked out as well. Anyway, regardless, 80% of the focus tree gets locked out if you declare independence too early. So I did another Let's Play. I decided to work with Belgium and develop the industry, and some of these bonuses are fantastic. So for instance, you need steel, you've got no resources. So when you've got options here for like 20 steel in Elizabethville, that's awesome. An option for a bunch of tungsten in Rwanda, and then a huge amount of rubber as well in the east as well. You can build an insane industry in the Congo, and there's nothing more fun in Hoi4 than starting off as a power that has basically nothing, literally one factory, and then building up to something and influential and actually having an impact on the war. Yes, it's ahistorical, but I'm playing a computer game, so I actually want to be a part of the game. And you do have the ability to do that. I think I ended the Let's Play with like 50 factories. However, when I chose to declare independence later on, after when I'd taken advantage of Belgium industry, when I got into the Civil War, the whole Allies turned against me, and the United States, the United Kingdom, and France all declared war on me. And when I was in the Civil War, I couldn't complete the Civil War because I didn't have enough divisions to hold the waves of the Allies back. And this kind of comes back to from a playtesting perspective. It's like, surely someone should have tested this and done these paths already to see these massive issues with them. Now, I know this will be fixed in a future patch, but I'm going to base the game how it was on release. And I redid these paths after when the game officially came out and there was a minor patch after it. And these issues were still here. I don't want this to feel like a bashing session because this focus tree is probably the most creative of all the new focus trees. The paths don't form a standardized structure, and the creativity of like this joint focus tree with the Belgium is very different. The issue is I just feel like it wasn't play tested enough to find these glaring issues. I don't really want to be a democratic Congo Belgium puppet. That's just boring. Of course, I'm going to declare independence and go down the fun stuff, which is the monarchist path. I suppose to come back to what I said earlier too, the Belgian path, for instance, forming the EU, has got a lot of issue with RNG. I just kind of felt like that could have been play tested just a little bit more. Okay, next big problem. Special projects. Here we go. The facilities. One of the issues I had initially with this feature is it feels like a lot of existing technologies have now been moved to experimental facilities and secret projects. For example, jet engines now have been moved into that category. Rockets, nukes have been moved into that category. And then what defines a secret project, like a flame tank, and what defines a regular technology like, I don't know, a rocket artillery, is like not very clearly defined. It kind of feels like it would have been a better system. There would have been a new tab up here specifically for secret weapons. And then a lot of these extra techs here, they've got this special icon that are locked behind secret projects, can be moved into that category. And it also kind of feels like the secret projects, let's make a nuclear one, feel like they need their own tech tree. So we've got this tech tree, which is the regular one, but wouldn't it be better to keep it in line with the rest of the game? So in this case, we go for here, and you can see, let's make a little focus tree for myself. So it'd be something like this, wouldn't it? Uran machine. So from my perspective, wouldn't the focus tree be better if it was more in the structure of the rest of the focus tree? So you'd start off with this tech. Boom. We've got the Uran machine. And then it follows up with the commercial nuclear reactor and the fusion bomb. Then you've got the thermal nuclear bomb. Then you've got nuclear engines, which is off the back of that. And then finally, you've got nuclear warheads, which would connect in with rockets. For illustration purposes, I've not chosen to include that in the rockets. Wouldn't this be better in the more formal tech tree than just picking from this big long list? Especially when we already have a tech tree system in Hoi 4 the community seems to like. Well, why have we created this system that everything is just long lists? Top it off as well, like if we have something like this, like nuclear warheads, wouldn't it be better to question mark this out and keep the mystery of what this potentially could be, but then requiring rocket tech, for instance? It's one of those visual things where it feels like if you show a tech tree, it shows the path that you can go down. But if you're just given just a long list, I just kind of feel like it's a little bit less visual. Some of the minor points. A lot of the secret weapons aren't new. So we have the Land Cruiser, which is basically a super heavy tank. I said super twice there. You can modify it and design it if it's like a battleship with more additional module slots. It's a bigger, super heavy tank. The flame tank is old tech from the previous game. We have new support companies that are armored versions. So they're regular support companies, but now they're armored versions. So they have armor. There are a few other stats that are a bit different as well. So it's an improved version of a regular support equipment. Then we have a regular piece of artillery, but now it's a super heavy piece of artillery. So it's support artillery becomes super heavy. The point I'm getting at is these are like just upgraded versions of existing technology that's already in the game. We've got a railway gun. Now we have a super heavy railway gun. And now we have a fort. Now we have a super heavy fort. So a lot of the new content that I'm talking about isn't new stuff. It's just bigger versions, more impressive versions of the stuff that's already in the game. There are some exceptions. For instance, I think the super heavy tank is very creative with some of the features with it because you can add modules on and lots of technologies to add on top of it. And I also think the mothership, which I don't have access to that because I've not got the air. From my perspective, feels like it is a brand new technology. Here we go, the mothership aircraft. And the America bomber. I've not built one of these yet. Oh, you can't actually modify them, which is a little bit sad. There aren't actually modules for those ones. It kind of feels like those ones should exist. Like, for instance, if I select this plane, I can actually specifically modify it. I feel like it's actually not a part of the There's not much of a solution to this one. I just wanted to illustrate that a lot of these technologies are existing larger versions than the existing game, where some of them have actual functionality, like the Land Cruiser, where some of them are just improved or regular versions of the existing ones. It feels like there's a lot of equipment that they've added to this DLC that doesn't have support for the other parts of the game, such as the tank designer or the plane designer. Just slightly lacking. Once again, these are super minor parts, but we have 2 breakthroughs now in game. We have this breakthrough, and then we also have this breakthroughs. Got an S on the end. Is that different now? I think it would have been better just calling these blueprints, and then you can use your blueprints to construct things, just to avoid having the same name twice. Just adds a little bit of confusion for the community, that's all. Let's research something new. Let's go for the military engineering vehicle. Now we have iterations. So through time, you get these added bonuses. The issue with this is because you have to click into this to see what the iterations are, you're not really paying a lot of attention to what these bonuses are. I mean, I clicked into this and I forgot this even existed. But every now and then you'll be given an option like, how would you like this vehicle to be designed? Would you like to go for speed or would you like to go for armor? Which is really cool because you feel as a part of this special project and you feel like you're actually developing it with the scientists, which feels really cool. But these just like random bonuses that just happen at random times, they're kind of so out of your control and RNG based. I don't feel like you feel very connected with it. Sometimes you just look and you're like, oh, I've got some air XP. Where did I get that from? Oh, it was designing my jet aircraft and they've randomly had a test that was successful and you gained some bonuses for points. I feel like there needs to be, this pop-up needs to be on the right-hand side. Is a pop-up saying, I don't know, something has been discovered by your experimental facilities and this is what was the net difference. It should pop up on the right-hand side. A bit like when you declare war, like this. See this pop up on the right here? Wouldn't that be nice to be on the right-hand side so the player could actually see that something has changed other than having to go into here, check it, and click on it again? So again, it just feels like the iterations are a cool system when you have to make a decision, but then when you're just given a random bonus and you're not even aware it even happened, you need to be made aware to the player's attention, not having to click into menus. The biggest experimental facility, the best secret project is nukes. And if you checked out my video on my main channel, you will notice that I nuked Germany completely to death. I completely flattened the entirety of Germany by dropping thermonuclear bombs, the most OP bombs, like 3 times more deadly than regular bombs, across every core territory of Germany. And their stability was still 100%. At the moment, because there are so many bonuses in the focus tree for stability for Germany, they're hard-coded to stay at 100% stability for the entire part of the war. Sure, their war support dropped down to 20%, but overall, the stability was still 100%. I suppose you just ask the questions like, what's the purpose of nukes? What are you actually doing it? I suppose it's a war of attrition, I suppose. But it just kind of felt really strange that I was to nuke every single part of Germany completely to a pulp, and the actual impact it had was actually relatively minor. I feel like there should be some kind of modifier that gets added to a country that's been nuked, particularly 3 or 4 times, and it should have an impact on surrender limit and actually have a big modifier for stability and war support. Unless the player's got a lot of political power that can maintain this war effort. So maybe it should disable the politics of that nation until they can resolve and stop the nukes from happening, for instance. So you're using political power as a currency to keep your country afloat, but then you've got no political power to actually use as part of your war effort. Does that make sense? So basically a currency becomes something to prop the country up until you run out, and at that point you lose all your stability and war support. Let's just summarize a bunch of things really quickly. Landmarks have been added to the game now. Here's the Reichstag getting 5% stability. Here we have the Eiffel Tower adding 5% stability. And then we have Big Ben, which Big Ben is the bell. I'm not sure if Paradox are aware of this. It's I believe it's called the Elizabeth Tower, but they're calling it the Westminster Clock Tower. It's the Elizabeth Tower, and Big Ben is the name of the bell. Anyway, it gives 3% political power, which is an unbelievably small amount. I suppose they're kind of cool to blow up, I suppose. If you do a raid on them or you bomb them up, it's kind of cool. But they don't really add much of an impact to the overall game. I think the biggest impact it makes is something on the map now you can actually capture and destroy, which is cool. I like the flavor. However, it does make a big difference overall. There's kind of a competing mechanics now with raids and strategic bombing. So for strategic bombing now, you can bomb, but then there's also a raid functionality, which allows you to do strikes on the map. I like raids, by the way. I think they're very, 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 very good. I like them a lot. However, it's kind of strange now that we have these competing mechanics of strategic bombing, which is the old system, and then the new system, which is raids. So for instance, if I wanted to, I could bomb, I don't know, Eastern Balkans here and try and aim for, I don't know, infrastructure to knock out the oil. But otherwise, we can actually do a raid on this location to actually knock them out as well. There's like 2 game mechanics that are almost like competing with one another. Because a lot of the special weapons are quite late game. We're adding 43, 44. A lot of players don't reach that. A lot of this content, a lot of players won't see. And for the Let's Plays that I did find that the late game was more laggy than normal, even though they've said the devs that they've been improving the late game even more. But I felt like later game, when I was trying to work towards those end game secret techs, I did find the lag was really intense. Suppose you're adding features for a game that a lot of players don't even reach, but then to reach that end game, you need the performance to back it up. Otherwise, players that are kind of reaching that point in the game and not really taking advantage of a lot of the extra stuff. I'll admit, I'm getting more UI pop-ups at the top of the screen. I feel like maybe the UI system could be simplified in a way, because now we've got special weapons as well as raids notifications. I'm getting lots of bars across the top. I wonder if some of these could pop up and then maybe expire at some point and move away to let the player know that this is no longer a problem anymore. Maybe a traffic light system where green ones disappear after maybe a week or so, where, I don't know, a month for the amber ones, and then the red ones stay at the top of the screen if it's something that urgently needs to be dealt with. It just feels like notification spam at the top of the screen now has become a little bit more intense due to those changes to raids and special projects. But there's some minor problems with the UI when it comes down to rockets. So I'll build a bunch of rockets throughout my country. And for the most part, I'm not getting that issue. So you can actually very clearly see on the map the rockets. There was instances where I was building rocket sites on very small parts of the game, and I was really struggling to see the rocket test sites. They almost overlapped with the air bases. But for Germany, with the dark color, they're actually not of a problem. Imagine it's a big issue for Belgium with rockets because they're that yellow color, which is the same color. I feel like the icon for rockets needs to be changed. I think Götterdämmerung is not a very good name for the DLC. In the past, the community would abbreviate DLC. So Battle for the Bosporus would be Bob. Do you have Bob? Oh, I don't have Bob. Everyone would repeat that DLC name over and over and over again because it just rolls off the tongue. I suppose it comes from more of a marketing perspective than anything, but Götterdämmerung, the only reason I can say it more fluently is because I've said it 100 times and I'm a content creator. You guys probably avoid saying, you probably just say the German DLC, don't you? Or new DLC. I think the name itself is cool. Götterdämmerung sounds awesome. But from a marketing perspective, I feel like, once again, it doesn't just roll off the tongue. I don't know. I feel like a name like The Fall of the Phoenix or The Rise of the Phoenix, or even just something as simple as Super Weapons. How cool that. I've got the new Hoi 4 expansion, Super Weapons. It's a little bit normie. It's a little bit cliche. But it illustrates what the DLC is about, and I don't really need to practice how to say Götterdämmerung. And the final thing is this expansion is quite a pricey one. I think it's $30, I believe. Which I'm surprised by the community's not pushing back against this. I guess people believe when they're playing as Germany, they're getting a lot of bang for their buck. Which I'm not denying that they don't. There's a lot of new content here. But I do think this DLC is being reviewed on this focus tree for Germany, the main character. And I did say this was going to be the big one. It looks like the community is well on board with saying this is the big one. On the plus side, the raids are awesome. The new raiding system is amazing. Plan missions, you prepare them, you execute them, you can actually see the conclusion. Where currently, if you do bombings, for instance, you're constantly having to look at the intel, seeing if you are damaging buildings, and you're seeing if you're making enough difference to be worth that change. But now you can actually see the impact of a raid and whether it was successful or not and what impact it actually made. And a lot of the changes are meaningful. And how it works with nukes is also fantastic too. The AI force concentration change, which if you're not familiar with, in brief, it means AIs now will actually plan proper attacks with their best, most offensive divisions to push into front lines to actually make spearheads. Speaking of challenge too, invading the UK is significantly harder. I've seen some massive content creators attempt to invade the UK now and get pushed all the way back into the channel. It's so fun to see, and it's so cool that the AI has been improved so massively in that region, with a few decisions making a difference on that as well. The historical stuff is also really cool too. Germany now will take out Poland, then Denmark, Norway, then do the Lowlands, and then do France. Italy will join more of a historical day as well. And it's so strange that we've had to get 6 years in to actually see Germany follow those focus paths in a historical direction. Am I waffling? Am I the Yap King? Let me in the comments below, guys. Tell me what you agree with, why you agree with it. Tell me what you disagree with, and why you disagree with me. Constructive criticism in the comments is allowed. Hope you have a good day, guys. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.